Hello, everybody. I'm Craig Kimbrough, Positive Guru. That's positiveguru.com. As always, glad to have you along on this journey into the world of spirituality, metaphysics, and meditation. Over the past, last week, I was talking about the book 30 Days of Metaphysics and Miracles in Your World. That's this book, the second book I wrote. And it's based on these different sayings that I learned from my teacher, Mr. M. Brister. Some of them are old biblical sayings. Some of them are old sayings that are Hindu sayings. Some of them are old stories. But it's based on these sayings that he would say at times when you had something going on that you need to understand. He would break out into one of these esoteric sayings. So it's based on the sayings, and then the explanation is I give the explanations of the sayings. And when I was talking about it last week, I was also explaining that once someone has read the whole book the first time or even before, it's recommended that at some point you get to the point to where you just open it up to a different page each day. You make that your page for the day. And it's to the point to where each page will have a saying on one side, and then I have my explanation of that saying on the other side. And then you live your life according to what you take it from that saying, and you also watch to see what's going on in your life, because so often, almost always, it's the strangest thing. The very thing that you need to know shows up. And it just shows up in the most uncanny ways, and it happens time after time after time. A lot of times, even when you're thinking about something, you open up the book, and there it is talking about the exact thing you're thinking about. Earlier this week, I was wondering if I should go into a particular place and take my fiance and youngest son there and so forth. And I had some reservations as to whether I should for different reasons and whatnot. And I decided I would open up the page 30 Days of Metaphysics and Miracles in Your Life. And the page I opened up to, it was the strangest thing, because when I opened up to this page, it said, when sexual energy is aroused, it has the power of 21 buffaloes. And I was like, what in the world does that have to do with this? It didn't have anything to do with sex. Or I was like, why am I opening up to this page? And for a hot second, I said, this page probably does not even apply. As soon as I get to the second paragraph, it says we have to be very careful of the situations that we place ourselves and spouses in. And it went on to explain further. And I said, man, that's the exact thing I was thinking. That, man, I don't know about this. Maybe I don't want to do this. It was like the universe was talking to me through the book. I said, man, here it is. It's telling me exactly what I need to know. And sometimes when I think about it, and people in my world tell me all the time, guess what happened to me? This happened, and my page for the day was this. Isn't that crazy? And sometimes I wonder if people think, man, he's very superstitious, or he thinks that, hey, I'm going to go to this book and the answer's going to be in the book. But it's not superstition. The fact is that this is a metaphysical universe that we are in, and we are constantly creating our worlds. And not only are we creating our worlds subconsciously and through our actions, in addition to that, the lessons that we need to experience also help to shape our worlds, which really, that's still us creating our worlds based on what we need to know. And of course, that's in conjunction with God and the universe, but we are constantly creating our worlds. So if there is something that you need to know, and you say, hey, I'm going to open up this and my answer is going to be there, if you somewhat believe in that intent, it will be there. And not only that, but what we focus on helps to shape our worlds. They say, as a man thinketh, so is he. As a woman thinketh, so is she. It's in the Bible. But that's also reinforcing that we are shaping and creating our worlds. So the idea is that when you are opening up a book that's based on metaphysics, based on spirituality, you are going to experience more of that. It's going to show up more in your world. And if it has that type of material, then when you're looking for something in your subconscious that is connected to the part of you that knows all, will guide you to the information you need. Now, this whole thing about creating our worlds, I've just been paying more and more attention to it because this has been showing up in so many different ways. And I'm very careful because I look at ways I'm creating my world, and at times I'm creating my world in a great way, and other times it may be in not such a great way. And even a part of our world is also our dreams. We create our dreams. And we have to know that because we're just laying there. But there we are in the desert, while we're laying in the bed, but we're experiencing ourselves in the desert. And there may be camels, or there may be whatever else is out there, or there may be lack of water, or all of a sudden you may walk and all of a sudden you're in an oasis. But a part of you is creating that whole scene. And the interesting thing is, after we create that scene in the unseen world of our dreams, we don't realize it, but just like we carry these experiences that we have in our outer life with us, we are carrying those dreams with us. They shape us. They make us expect certain things. They make us react to certain things in different ways. And as we expect, we create and attract. Now, I had the interesting experience the other day. I was having a dream, and, of course I didn't realize I was in a dream. I was just there. And there I was with my friend Wayne, who's a musician, and I'm trying to figure out, and he's playing his horn in the dream, and I'm trying to figure out, now, how are we going to get Wayne to expand? We got to get this all across the world. And I kept figuring it like, no, we can't do it this way. We got to do it that way. And it was just of the utmost urgency for me. And it almost, in some ways, I might have been stressing it a little bit. And I was like, why, when I came out the dream, like, why was this so important to me to expand like this and to take this all across the nation and so forth and try to figure out how to do it? And then I remembered earlier that evening before the dream, I had been watching the BMF series, the Black Mafia series, and it's these drug dealers and whatnot, and the two drug dealers, and I'm not just watching the series, I was watching the documentary, and they were talking about how ingenious these guys were. The FBI was saying how ingenious they were at expanding. They were running it like a corporation, and they were expanding all across the nation. And I was saying, man, that had to take some ingenuity. I was like, and I have a couple businesses. I have my gutter and window business, and I also have the meditation. So I was thinking at the time, like, man, should I be focusing on expansion? I live a good life now, but with the gutter business, should I be focusing more on expansion? And I guess I took that with me. And then what really made me realize that that's what the dream was about was because my friend Wayne was in the dream, and he was the one that I was expanding with. and my friends that I'm close to in the meditation circle and so forth, and even sometimes Wayne's a retired teacher, but sometimes he'll help us out in the other business. And we all know that Wayne is Southwest Wayne. Everything is Southwest. I don't care what it is. He'd be talking about, oh man, you never heard of Southwest Michael Jackson? We're like, Southwest Michael Jackson? Like, yeah, man, he'd be standing outside the store and doing his little, I'm like, no, I ain't never heard of that. Then he'd be talking about Southwest Prince. This guy who dresses up like Prince on the Southwest side. Everybody knows Southwest Prince. But it's like everything that we have in the rest of the world, they got a Southwest version of it. And to him, even though he's actually moved to more like downtown area of Detroit, but still everything is Southwest, because that's where he grew up. So that's what definitely led me to realize that, okay, this is about that series, because the BMF family, they were from Southwest Detroit, and you see Southwest signs, street signs and so forth throughout the movie and throughout the documentaries and so forth, and they're talking about it. I said, man, I didn't carry this into my dreams. And actually, in the dream, I was not really in a peaceful place. I try to be in a peaceful place in life. And now, yes, I have some things that I want to expand and grow upon, but I try to let them sort of make their way into my world, not thinking, man, I got to do this. But that's what my looking and watching the documentaries and series left on my mind. So it showed up in my dream. And this isn't the first time that the BMF series has showed up in my dream. Matter of fact, last night, and I usually pay attention to what I watch and even what I talk about and where I go, because I want to make sure that whatever I am doing or focusing upon, I want to be careful, because I know that what I focus on expands into my world. It becomes more a part of my world. And as I said, I've had other dreams about it. And BMF is a great series. Oh my God, it's addictive. It's hard for me to stop watching it. And then I've watched the different documentaries, and my friends have too. My meditation friends. We're sitting here talking about everyone's seen almost all the documentaries. But I was telling them, I had a dream about it last night after watching the series last night. I was like, it entered my world, and there all of a sudden in my dream, I'm a drug dealer. And I said, that's when I realized, man, I got to back off. Whether I stop watching the show or stop watching the other documentaries that go along with the show, I definitely got to slow up on how much I'm watching this. And then a friend of mine, he said, me too. I've been having dreams about it too. But as I said, we create our worlds. First, what we focus on, it gets in our subconscious. Then it shows up in our dreams. Then it shows up in our expectations. All of a sudden, we may be watching our backs more or whatever, but it shows up, and eventually we will draw the equivalent things into our worlds that we are watching and talking about and thinking about. It's the most interesting thing. I remember I was in a relationship at one time with someone that watched reality shows. And it was, the reality shows where they're arguing all the time and fighting and fussing all the time. And I was telling her, I was like, this stuff, this is going to show up. You're going to find yourself in more arguments. You're going to find yourself more agitated. You're going to find yourself walking around with more of an attitude. Whatever it is that you are seeing in here, it multiplies in your world. Now, there are cases in which, like for me, when I watch American Gangster, because of what enters my mind with that particular show, I get inspired. I get inspired by the relationship between Bumpy Johnson and Frank Lucas. Bumpy Johnson was his mentor. And I always say all the great ones have a mentor, whether it be in the field of meditation, whether it be in the field of teaching, whether it be in the field of drug dealing or whatever, but they all have a mentor. And I would notice the different things, maybe mistakes that I felt were made because he didn't listen to some of the things that Bumpy Johnson suggested should be done. And I would focus on all these lessons, and I would get inspired as I watched the television show. A friend of mine, Billy, said, man, I can't watch that show. He says, oh, man. He says, I get stressed out. But that's because of what enters his mind during the television show or during the movie. So it doesn't necessarily have to just be purely what you are immersing yourself in, but also what it evokes out of you. For one person, it may be one thing. For another, it may be another. But we should pay attention. Now, the other day, my page for the day, well, actually, I found myself thinking, and I was thinking about ways of expanding who I perceive myself as being, or what I want to, or what I'm moving into more. I have my family life and everything else, and I have my gutter and window cleaning business, and then in addition to that, of course, I have this meditation teachings, and I have music. And I was saying that I want to expand more into being in the whole positive guru mode. And I said, how do I do that? And to where I'm like there all the time. And I opened up 30 Days of Metaphysics and Miracles in Your Life. And the page I opened up to is page 96. And it reads, I'm much different when my students are around. And I based that on this one thing that Mr. Brister said to me one time, but it just struck me so hard when he said it. I'm going to read the accompanying page. It says, when I first met my teacher, I had many questions, and he answered all of them beyond my expectations. He explained all I knew on each subject and took it further, making things add up even more than I expected. Years later, he told me that he did not have the answer to many of the questions that I asked that day. But the answers came flying out of his mouth anyway. Then he said, you have to understand, I'm much different when my students are around. And that day that I first met him and I asked all those questions, I was feeling like I'm meeting a teacher, a meditation teacher, maybe even a guru. I got to see if he knows his stuff. So I was asking him all kinds of questions about anything that remotely dealt with metaphysics and meditation. I was asking him about reincarnation and all types of things. And whatever I asked him about, he took it to the next level. If I asked him about reincarnation, he says, oh yes, let me tell you, this is this and this is that. Then if I asked him about, he would even go into, have you heard about transmigration? That's part of the reincarnation process. If I asked him about Atlantis, he says, oh yeah, the city of Atlantis, that got buried under the water, and this and that happened. That was during one of the golden ages, the time of high learning. He said, but have you heard of Lumeria? He just take whatever it was, he'd take it further. Asked him about how the mind works, about us attracting our own world. I talked to him about the devil and God and everything. He just had all the answers. So it blew my mind that he said that I didn't have the answers to those questions when you asked me. But they came flat out of my mouth anyway. Because I'm much different when my students are around. I was like, wow. I'll read the rest of the page. I've had similar experiences myself when teaching meditation classes and giving lectures. I found myself answering things so profoundly, then I wanted to stop and write down notes for myself. When this happens, it is no longer you doing the talking. The eternal is coming through. We are all souls on the path to greater realization of our oneness with God. We are all advancing at different stages of the path. The guru is a soul on the path just like the rest of us, just a little further along. The teacher is still very much human, but is much different with students because of the nature of the relationship. When the student is with sincere students, when the teacher is with sincere students, he or she makes no mistakes with questions, answers, and instructions. Just as when we move further on the path, we will discover when the subject of spiritual life comes up, we will be naturally in a different mode and amazed at how God works through us. And when I read that, after asking, how do I move into this character that I see? How do I move into being more of that? I knew that was my answer. And I just randomly opened up to the page, but I knew that was my answer because it reminded me of when I thought that years ago. I'm talking 20 years ago, at least. When I asked a similar question, and the idea came in my mind, open up a bookstore. Now, I had my business back then also. And I went out and found space that would be perfect for me to have a bookstore. Not just a bookstore, but a bookstore that dealt with metaphysics and meditation, spirituality and yoga and all those things. And I said to myself, when I do that, I'll be having discussions about this all the time. People will be coming in asking questions. I'll be recommending books. This will bring it more into my world. and then I'll be more that person. Well, it's the same thing with, I'm much different when my students are around. Then God will come through. Then I will have more of my ego out the way. That's one other thing I was wondering. How do I get more of my ego out the way? But that was the answer. And when I opened up the store, man, it happened. It was a beautiful thing. And I said, okay, I'm supposed to do that more now. Going about my day, didn't think anything else about it. Then got the urge to call my friend Wayne again. He's one of the fortunate ones like me who just have all this spare time on our hands in the winter. We can just chill, unless he makes the mistake of going back to his old job. No, I'm just joking. We were all talking about that ahead of time. But anyway, but when I called him, he started talking about this dream of his. And in the dream, he was saying it's the strangest dream. His father was in the dream. And then someone he knew in his world, in this life, was in the dream also. And in that dream, he was on the golf course. I ain't never seen Wayne golf or talk about golfing, but he's on the golf course. And when he was on the golf course, he was I can't remember how it happened, but before he told me about this dream, he was talking about something in particular. And when he was talking about it, I was saying, that's what it was. We were talking about life. The dream hadn't come up yet. We were talking about life. And we were talking about life. He was saying, man, when do you win? When do you win at this game? And I knew what he meant, because he's won at times. I've won at times. But he mean, just like, yeah, I've won. Game over, I've won. And at least that's the way I took it. And what came to my mind immediately, I was like thinking of the legend of Bagger Vance. And something that Bagger would say to Randolph Jr., he was like, it's a game that can't be won, can only be played. So that's what I said. I said, it's a game that can't be won, only can be played. And I knew he remembered the line. And then, and then I said some other line from the movie also. And he says, oh man, let me tell you about this dream. That's when he started going into the dream. And when he was talking about the dream, he was saying that they were on the golf course, and his father was there, and this other person that he knew in his world was there. And he was saying that in the dream, they were on the golf course. He says, man, you mentioned Bagger Vance. It brought me back. I almost forgot about that dream. He says, we were on the golf course. He said, I had all these golf balls. They were all old and falling apart and used and just torn up. And here we are playing this game of golf, and I wasn't doing well either. And he said at some point, I don't know if during the dream or after the dream, he realized that he had to let go, because he knew the one person in the dream was somebody in his world that he had to let go of. He says, man, I got to let go. And then at one point, his father left the dream. He was no longer on the course with him. And after his father left, he actually did better. And then he, I guess, probably felt better when the other person was gone too, that he knew he had to let go of, and didn't even realize that I've still got this person in my mind, in my world. He says, it was about letting go. I get it now. It was about letting go. And I was like, do your best and leave the rest, as Mr. Ambrister would say. Just do your best in life and leave the rest of those things alone. We talked about the dream more, and a little bit about his father more, and the other person more. But he's saying it's about letting go. And we came to the conclusion that he may not have remembered the dream and the lesson from the dream if I didn't start mentioning Bagger Vance and the game that can only be won and they're going to be played and not be won. And basically let go as you're playing the game. Don't be worried about whether you're winning or whether you're losing or this or that or the other. And we just looked at how magical it came together. And I was saying, yeah, it's almost like a part of yourself knew that, because you don't usually play golf a lot, but a part of yourself made it about golf because it knew that when you ask this question later on about, man, do we ever win, that I was going to respond talking about Bagger Vance and the golf game. And then it's going to remind you of the dream and how you need to let go of these things in your world, and how your life got better after you moved on and so forth. And it reminded me of something one of my friends, I don't know if it's Dave or one of my friends said, but basically that, it's like you never don't really grow up 100% until your parents leave. And that doesn't mean that we aren't somewhat realized, but that's when all of a sudden you realize that I don't have that support system that I used to have. I can't call them up and say, hey, what do I do about this and this and that and the other. But it was an interesting conversation. But we were convinced that he created, not just created that dream to realize that he needed to let go of some things in this world and realize that, hey, as I move forward with my life, it's going to be better. I'm going to be playing better. I'm going to be letting go and enjoying the game more. But also, did he create that moment where we were talking about the game of golf? Was it a coincidence that I brought up that golf analogy? Did a part of him know that was going to happen? But then it also came back to what I was going through in my world. I had a situation with a person in my life that I need to let go of. And sometimes it's hard when you feel responsible for people in your world and you want to be there, you want to help them. Even, I know just as part of myself being a father, at times it's like I hang on too much because I want to help. And sometimes you got to say, hey, do your best and leave the rest. Hey, I've done this, now you are going to get it at some point, over here or over there, and I can't push you. If I push you, it may be longer. But that came out to me as I was talking with Wayne about letting go. I said, man, that's what I need to do. And I said, man, I'm much different when my students are around. When I'm having conversations with people that are into meditation and things like that, I get the answers to the things going on in my world. And I've often said we have lessons in common. That's how it works all the time. But for me, it was magical. It was like a part of myself was creating the situation. A part of Wayne's self was creating the situation. And none of it was by accident. This world is very fluid. We have created what's going on in our worlds. And we can change what's going on in our worlds just by what we focus on, just by the type of atmospheres we place ourselves in, just by the type of conversations that we have. And as we do it more and we do it more and we do it more, our dreams at night change, and then our dreams during the day, and this waking dream, it changes. Just like we create that world and create the whole setting, we do the same thing in our world. My fiance and I, we're looking for a house to move into, or condo. And I love the place that we are now, but it's just with time to move. And it'll happen shortly after we get married. And there's a couple of streets that I just love the homes on. One is a street that has these nice, kind of large Cape Cod style of condos. They're condos, but they're detached, and they're like Cape Cod homes, and they're really nice. And I love the street, everything. Then there's another area with detached condos that I love. There's another area with houses that she loves and whatnot. But there's this one that seems to be the winner of them all. And of course, now we're really not ready to buy until September. But there's one that just is incredible. But that particular, it's like almost like a private road, and it only has I don't know how many buildings, how many condos or houses on it. Maybe 8, 10, 12, I don't know. But there's one for sale now, but I know by the time we're ready to purchase, and unless we decide to buy sooner, in a couple months from now, it'll be gone. And what are the odds that it's going to be there afterwards? Now we like the others too, and I ride down that road often. And as I said, it's just a one way in, one way out, and so much to the point to where I I have my vehicle that I ride, my SUV that I have. Kelly has her SUV, and then I've got a couple of minivans for the business and so forth. Well, after a while, I started going up and down that street so much. I said, you know what? Let me go in the minivan today. They're probably like, who is this dude in this this red expedition always riding up and down our street, calling the police? Hey, he's here again. But I told myself, nothing wrong with me riding down that street and imagining being in one of these places. I was reminded, I think Kelly said, it's just like your sister in her house. My sister Tracy, when she used to live in one part of Southfield and loved the house over there and so forth. But there was this house in Birmingham that she and my brother-in-law that they loved. And they had seen it before, and it was for sale, and they loved the house, and then they did not buy. They still lived where they were in Southfield and whatnot. Then years later, they finally decide, you know what? It's time to move, and yes, we are going to move to Birmingham. Let us go look again, and look and see what's available. Do you know years later that same house went back for sale? And that's the house they live in now. And I said, that's not a coincidence. That was created. We are creating our worlds by our focus, by our thoughts, by our expectations, by our conversations, by our dreams, by our meditations. The more we meditate, the more our mind opens up to beautiful things happening and brings us to higher conversations, higher concentrations, and higher manifestations. Know that you are creating your world and you can create your world. Pay attention to what you're watching. I talked about the BMF series and what that does for me. But at the same time, and then American Gangster, you can know about a gangster, what that does for me. Someone else, it may be flipped. Maybe this one inspires them. This one drives them to where they start to have negative thoughts. But pay attention. Tonight we're watching Enchanted. It's funny, Kelly talked about the movie Enchanted, and I think she's surprised when I wanted to see it because it's like a cartoon and it's not the type of thing she would normally think I would watch. But I said, yes, I'd love to see that movie because I remember one time when I went to the theater asking, is it possible to have whatever I want? And I saw the movie Enchanted, and I saw the magical things that happened. I said, oh, man, that's my message. So I'd like to see that message again. And someone in here was telling me about something. My friend Aaron was mentioning a movie that he saw that was good. They said it reminds you of, and I forget what else, but it reminded him of another spiritual movie that I liked. And I said, I'm going to watch that because I know when I watch certain things, it evokes me to go out and do certain things in my world. It evokes me to start expecting certain things in my life. And I have seen things just magically come into being time and time again. Don't have enough time to explain some of those today, but I've mentioned them many other times in these conversations that we have. So work with that magical part of yourself that is creating. Take time to meditate so that you will want to do that even more. I'm Craig Kimbrough, PositiveGuru.com. As always, it was great having you along. Until next week, peace and blessings to you all.